vanished. "Where did you get that?" he said. "You know who that girl is?" Lauren asked coldly. "Doesn't matter," she resisted. "She's Steven Seagal's daughter," Lauren said. His face went pale. "And I'm Lauren Seagull." He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. "You threatening me?" he asked. "If I was threatening you, you'd be face down already," she replied. She slid a napkin toward him with the words, "Room 6, Wilmington General. 9 years old. Broken arm. Audio. Witnesses. Internal affairs. By the time my brother gets here, you'll be lucky to keep your badge. You people think you can," Dunning began. Lauren slammed both hands on the table. The diner shook. "What you did wasn't fear. It was cowardice. You broke the wrong little girl, and now I'm going to break your career." She turned to leave. "Next time I see you in uniform, I hope it's during your perp walk." She walked out. Her phone buzzed again. Saw a waitress from the diner just called it in. Said a woman confronted Dunan, gave him a name, played a recording. Lauren smiled. "Let's just say," she answered. "I dropped something on his table." "You're not done, are you?" Soto asked. Lauren looked at the horizon. "I haven't even started." By sunrise, the city of Wilmington was no longer quiet. The emergency call from Ayah Seagull's phone had been uploaded anonymously to a whistleblower platform, where it spread like wildfire. Within 12 hours, it had been shared over 400,000 times. It was raw and painful, filled with the panicked voice of a child begging for mercy, the harsh shouts of an officer, and the unmistakable crack of her arm breaking. People didn't just listen. They reacted. They reposted. They marched. The clip had struck a nerve that had been raw for too long. Major news outlets began airing the audio on loop, some with warnings, others without. Commentators argued over legality, protocol, and morality. But what couldn't be debated was the sound of real pain, and when the identity of the victim was confirmed, Ayah Seagull, daughter of actor and martial arts icon Steven Seagal, the nation paid attention. This wasn't just another headline. This was personal. By 9 a.m., Officer Ray Dunnan had deleted his social media accounts, turned off his phone, and called in sick. But it was too late. 2 news vans were already parked in front of his home, and a drone hovered overhead filming his backyard. Inside the Wilmington Police Department, the atmosphere was fractured. Some officers exchanged knowing glances. Others distanced themselves, trying to avoid the inevitable fallout. No one defended him openly. Not this time. Meanwhile, inside Wilmington General Hospital, Lauren Seagull sat quietly beside Ayah's bed. The girl was stable but quiet, sedated from medication. Her small hand clutched Lauren's sleeve like an anchor. The cast on her arm was now signed by half the nurses in the ER. Words of encouragement. "You're brave. You matter. Justice is coming." Surrounded her like a shield. Steven Seagal still hadn't arrived. He was flying back from a filming event overseas. Lauren had deliberately kept the hospital room calm, trying to give him time to land before facing what had been done to his daughter. Because if Steven Seagal saw Ayah's broken arm before knowing the facts, the city might not survive his fury. By 11:13 a.m., Lauren walked into the lobby of the Wilmington Police Department. She was no longer in a hoodie. She wore a charcoal blazer, dark jeans, and boots. Her face calm, her eyes focused. She didn't wait for permission. She laid a folder on the front desk in front of the officer on duty. "I need to speak to your commanding officer," she said. Inside the folder, screenshots of the dispatch report, a transcript of the emergency call, EMT drop-off records, and a signed letter from Sergeant Maria Soto confirming an internal affairs investigation into Officer Dunning. 10 minutes later, Lauren was face-to-face with Captain Riley, a weathered man with silver stubble and eyes that were trying to read her every move. "Miss Seagull," he began, "Internal Affairs is conducting a full inquiry. Officer Dunan has been placed on administrative leave pending review." Lauren raised an eyebrow. "Administrative leave?" she repeated. "He shattered the arm of a 9-year-old girl and abandoned her at the curb. He didn't file a report. He didn't call it in. He ran. Riley cleared his throat. We are following procedure. You followed procedure? Lauren interrupted when you buried his last complaint and the one before that. She threw another folder onto his desk. Inside were records of 3 prior civilian complaints against Dunning. All dismissed. No action taken. I'm not here because my last name is Seagull, she said. I'm here because a man in uniform believes he can brutalize black children without consequence. Captain Riley leaned forward, defensive. This department is under immense pressure right now. You have until tomorrow morning, Lauren said sharply, to fire him publicly, or the Seagull family goes live with everything. He blinked. Are you threatening the department? I'm giving you a chance, she replied, to survive what's coming. By 2 p.m., the front of Wilmington PD was flooded. Protesters carried signs. Justice for Ayah, protect kids, not egos. We see you, Ray. College students, parents, activists, and locals all stood together, their chants echoing off the concrete. Lauren stood at the top of the courthouse steps. She didn't chant, she didn't yell, she just watched. Her phone buzzed. Sergeant Sato again. I just left HQ, she said. They've frozen Dunning's pay, flagged his badge. He's under full review for use of excessive force again. Not enough, Lauren said quietly. What are you going to do? Sato asked. I'm going to do what they won't, she said. That evening, a video was posted to Lauren Seagal's verified social media account. It wasn't flashy, just her standing in front of the hospital, one hand resting gently on Ayah's cast. Some people think they can hide behind a badge forever. Lauren said to the camera, but we're not afraid of uniforms, we're afraid of silence. She looked directly into the lens. Ray Dunning heard a child and walked away. Now I'm walking toward him, and when I find him, he'll learn that you don't lay hands on a seagull. By sunrise Tuesday morning, Hatch Justice for Ayah was trending globally. Protests had expanded beyond the precinct to City Hall. National talk shows played the emergency, call in full. Celebrities spoke out. Civil rights attorneys began circling the case. Steven Seagal had landed hours earlier, but no one had seen him. Not the press, not the police. Only Lauren knew where he was, because at that moment he was exactly where he needed to be, sitting quietly in the back seat of Lauren's car, parked near Ray Dunan's house. From their vantage point, they had a clear view of the home. Yellow paint peeling, curtains drawn, a mailbox full of uncollected letters. It was 6:44 a.m. Still nothing, Lauren said. Then the garage door creaked open. Ray Dunan stepped out, nervously glancing around. He was dressed in plain clothes, a duffel bag over his shoulder, his badge still clipped to his belt. A black Dodge Charger waited across the street. He's skipping town, Lauren said flatly. Steven didn't speak. Lauren stepped out of the car silently. Dunning didn't see her until he shut the trunk. When he turned, she was already standing there, calm, centered, unflinching. I wouldn't leave just yet, she said. He instinctively reached for his holster. Go ahead, she said. That'll be the last move you ever make. He froze. What do you want? He spat. I want you to feel something close to what you made her feel, Lauren said. She resisted, he began. But the words didn't finish. Lauren's fist landed, square in his jaw. Not wild, not impulsive, trained, controlled. He stumbled backward. She advanced, grabbed him by the collar, slammed him into the side of his car. You grabbed a little girl. Slam. You broke her arm. Slam. You left her like trash. Slam. He tried to fight back, but she pivoted, twisted his arm behind his back. He cried out. Hurts, doesn't it? She said. She said, ever think about how scared she was? She made it up. He gasped. I didn't mean a knee to the gut cut him off. He dropped to the pavement, wheezing. Lauren crouched beside him. I should put this on camera, she said. Let the world see you beg. Then she reached into her jacket and pulled out a sealed envelope. Inside, a civil lawsuit for assault in a minor, a subpoena for his court appearance, a restraining order signed by Steven Seagal himself. Internal Affairs official report. She dropped it on his chest. "You're done, Ray," she said coldly. "And if you come within a 100 FT of her again next time, I won't stop." Sirens in the distance. 2 squad cars rounded the corner. "Get up," she ordered. He groaned. "Get up!" As the officers cuffed Ray Dunnan against the hood of his own car, neighbors stepped out, phones in hand. No one looked surprised. No one defended him. The truth was out. One officer turned to Lauren. "You're Lauren Seagull?" She nodded. "My daughter's in art class with Ayah," he said quietly. "She still talks about that sketchbook." Lauren met his eyes. "She's not done drawn," she said. "Not even close." The footage of Ray Dunnan's arrest spread like wildfire. Every major news outlet played standing tall in the early morning light with a sealed envelope pressed to his chest. The video had no audio, but it didn't need any. The image alone told the world what had happened. A reckoning had begun inside the Wilmington Police Department. Tension simmered. Some officers refused to speak on the matter. Others muttered bitterly about Lauren Seagull and the circus she had created, but a few quietly in hallways, and locker rooms nodded in agreement. They'd seen Dunning's behavior for years. They'd just never expected anyone to actually do something about it. That afternoon, Sergeant Maria Soto called Lauren with a warning. Her voice was calm, but serious. "You're getting heat," she said. "Internal voices are framing you as volatile, emotional. There's talk that you used excessive force." Lauren let out a short, humorless laugh. "He broke a child's arm, and now I'm excessive." "I know," Soto replied, "but they're trying to flip the narrative. You embarrassed them. You made them look weak." "I didn't make them weak," Lauren said coldly. "They were already rotten. I just turned on the lights." By 2:00 p.m., protesters outside the station had doubled. Celebrities tweeted their support. Civil rights organizations issued public statements. Still, Wilmington PD had not held a press conference. No apology, no transparency, just silence. But that changed at 3:47 p.m. A sleek black SUV pulled up in front of the precinct. Doors opened, cameras surged. The back door opened last, and Steven Seagal stepped out. He wore a dark suit, no tie, his face unreadable. His eyes focused, like a hawk zeroing in on a target. He didn't wave, he didn't smile. He climbed the steps with Lauren and a legal advisor behind him. Protesters erupted into cheers. "Justice for Ayah. Let him speak." Steven reached the top and took the microphone. The crowd silenced like a switch had been flipped. A man put his hands on my 9-year-old daughter, he began, voice steady but sharp. He twisted her arm, threw her to the ground, broke her like she didn't matter. Not a sound from the audience, only the flag snapping in the wind. "He didn't care who she was, and that's what hurts the most," Steven said. "Not because she's my daughter, but because he looked at a little girl and saw nothing worth protecting." He paused, then looked directly into the camera. "To Officer Dunnan, you picked the wrong little girl. And to the system that made him, you've got one shot to fix this before we fix it for you." He stepped back. No further words. Just a storm left behind inside the precinct. Interim Chief Grayson Hale watched the live feed on his monitor. His phone rang. "The mayor. Fix this." The voice barked. "Fix it now." But Lauren wasn't waiting on anyone to act. She had work to do. That evening, Lauren sat at her kitchen table. Ayah was asleep upstairs. Steven stood at the window, silent. They'd received over 12,000 messages in 48 hours. Victims, parents, whistleblowers, people who had been waiting years for someone to listen. "We need to do more," Lauren said. "We can't let this end with just him." Steven nodded. "We go national." Within days, they launched the FIST initiative, Fighters for Institutional Safety and Truth. It was more than a foundation. It was a machine, a mobile strike force of civil rights lawyers, retired detectives, investigators, whistleblowers, and trauma counselors. Their mission: expose patterns of police abuse, protect the silenced, and put power back in the hands of communities. The public backed them instantly. Lauren and Steven held town halls, press conferences, interviews. They didn't ask for permission, they demanded attention. But the backlash came just as fast. At 6:03 a.m. Thursday morning, as Lauren stepped outside for her morning run, a gray sedan screeched to a stop in front of her. 3 men in plain clothes jumped out. One flashed a badge. "Lauren Seagull, you're under temporary detainment for obstruction and aggravated assault on a peace officer." Before she could respond, they cuffed her and shoved her into the car. No Miranda rights, no phone call, just silence. Neighbors watched from windows, phones filming. The footage hit Twitter in 10 minutes. By 6:44 a.m., Stephen was on the phone with Sergeant Sato. "You didn't warn her," he said, voice like steel. "I didn't know," Sato said. "They bypassed internal channels. It's retaliation." "I want every name," Stephen said. "Every signature, every address." By 7 a.m., Lauren sat in a holding cell with no official paperwork, no attorney, no explanation. Just a clipboard with a statement demanding she cease all involvement in police misconduct cases. She read it once, then tore it in half. "You think I'm scared of paper?" she muttered. One man behind the glass sneered. "You're making noise the department doesn't want." "I'm not walking away," she replied. "Not now, not ever." At 8:02 a.m., the door opened. Stephen Seagull walked in flanked by 2 lawyers, a federal agent from the U.S. Department of Civil Rights, and a cameraman. He didn't speak, just handed the agent a flash drive. Inside surveillance footage of Lauren's arrest, dash cam footage from the confrontation with Dunning, legal proof of her medical and emergency response license. All documents showed her authority was legitimate, her actions legal. The agent nodded once. "She's leaving with us." Lauren stood up slowly, her wrists still red from the cuffs. Finally, she whispered. Outside, a crowd had formed. Reporters, protesters, even a representative from the mayor's office. Stephen took the mic. "The city of Wilmington tried to silence the woman who protected my daughter," he said. "They tried to call justice a threat. Now they'll see what happens when you come after a Seagull family member twice." That evening, Lauren and Stephen hosted a town hall in a high school gymnasium packed with 600 people. There were parents, teachers, former officers, and dozens of silent victims. A mother stepped forward. "My son was slammed into a car hood for jaywalking." A teenager held up a phone. "This is my brother's face after a routine stop." A former officer took the mic. "I tried to report my partner's behavior. I was demoted and pushed out." Every voice was like a wound finally opened, and Lauren stood in the middle of it all, absorbing it and promising change. "We're building a record," she said. "A case. And when it's done, every name, every badge, every sealed file, it's all coming out." That night, their website, Seagaljustice.org, launched. By morning, it had over 18,000 verified submissions. Wilmington's chief of police resigned by noon. 3 more officers were placed on leave. The district attorney reopened 10 closed cases linked to Dunning, and upstairs in a quiet hospital room, Ayah smiled for the first time in days. Her cast had been replaced with a removable brace. She scrolled through headlines on a tablet, eyes wide. "Do you think other kids will be okay now?" she asked. Lauren knelt beside her. "They will," she said softly. "Because you were brave enough to speak, and now the world is speaking with you." The courtroom was packed. Los Angeles County Superior Court had seen high-profile trials before, but never with this much weight. This time, it wasn't just about a single crime. It was about a broken system finally standing trial through the face of one man. On one side of the aisle sat Lauren Seagull, expression unreadable, a slim notebook in her lap. Beside her, Stephen Seagull sat motionless, his hands clasped in front of him, as calm as a blade before a strike. And next to them sat Ayah Seagull, dressed in soft blue, her healing arm resting gently in a brace, her eyes sharp, alert. Across from them sat Ray Dunnan, thinner now, paler. The man who had once strutted through the precinct like a predator now looked small behind the bulk of his 2 attorneys. He didn't meet eyes with the Seagulls. He didn't even lift his head. The judge entered. The jury was seated, and the state of California presented its case. Your Honor, the prosecutor began, we intend to prove that Officer Raymond Dunnan knowingly and violently assaulted a minor, failed to report the incident, attempted to flee the state, and conspired with others to suppress the truth. Gasps echoed through the gallery. Every seat was filled. Every hallway outside was lined with spectators, many of them silent victims of similar abuse who had finally found a courtroom they believed might listen. The first piece of evidence was played with no introduction. The emergency call recording from Ayah's phone. The courtroom froze. Ayah's tiny voice filled the air. Please, I didn't do anything. Please stop. That hurts. Then came the crack. The sound of her arm snapping echoed through the courtroom like a thunderclap. A juror covered her mouth. The judge's hand twitched. Dunning shifted in his seat for the first time. Then came the photos. X-rays of Ayah's fractured bones. Images of the bruises along her arm and wrists. The timeline of events carefully reconstructed from surveillance, hospital records, and GPS data from Dunning's cruiser. Lauren Seagull took the stand next. Her voice was measured. She didn't waver. She told the story from the moment Ayla pressed her emergency shortcut to the moment the squad car pulled up to arrest Dunnan outside his house. I didn't punch him because I lost control, she said. I did it because he thought no one would ever hold him accountable. Objection. Overruled. Next came the testimonies. Dozens. Parents, former officers, nurses, teachers, even a retired lieutenant who had seen Dunning's behavior for years and confessed. The complaints were often buried by command staff to avoid scandal. Ray Dunning wasn't a rogue cop, the prosecutor said during closing arguments. He was a symptom of protection without accountability. And then it was Ayah's turn. She was led gently to the stand by her mother. The courtroom was silent. Even the reporter stopped typing. She looked so small in that chair, yet when she spoke, her voice carried like a bell. He asked me for ID, but I'm 9, she said. I told him my name. I told him my dad's name. He laughed. Then he grabbed me and twisted my arm. I heard it break. The courtroom didn't breathe. Ayla then held up a drawing, her own. A crayon sketch of a little girl with her arm in a cast standing tall in front of a crowd. Below it, written in neat letters, I'm stronger now. There was no order from the judge, no cue, but everyone in the gallery stood up. A quiet, powerful show of respect. Ayah looked at them, then looked at Lauren, who nodded proudly. Ray Dunnan didn't raise his eyes once. After 8 days of testimony, the jury deliberated for just over 6 hours. At 4:11 p.m., the foreperson stood and delivered the verdict. On the count of aggravated assault on a minor, guilty. On the count of abuse of authority, guilty. On the count of attempted evasion of justice, guilty. Ray Dunning showed no emotion as he was led out in cuffs. He didn't speak, he didn't beg, he didn't look at the Seagal'S. His career was over, his badge gone, his name now synonymous with failure. Outside the courthouse, hundreds had gathered. As Lauren, Stephen, and Ayah stepped down the steps, the crowd erupted into applause. Reporters shouted questions, but the Seagal'S didn't stop. They moved together, flanked by legal advisors and community leaders. Stephen, one voice called. Out. What happens now? Stephen turned slightly, his expression still iron. Now, he said, we build something that doesn't need a seagull to be heard. 3 weeks later, they weren't celebrating. They were organizing. Because for every Ray Dunnan brought to justice, there were dozens more hiding behind sealed complaints protected by silence and policy. Lauren and Stephen formally launched FIST nationwide. Offices opened in 20 states. Submissions to their database soared past 31,000. Retired detectives, civil rights attorneys, and digital forensic analysts joined the initiative. Their motto was simple. We don't wait for permission. We shine the light. But the system never stays silent for long. One evening, Lauren received an encrypted message. Subject, incoming retaliation. Eyes on you. Inside was a list of cities. 5 had already flagged FIST operations for investigation. 1 had issued a cease and desist. 2 others were preparing legal challenges to block their access to personnel files. "They're scared," Stephen said, reading over her shoulder. "Good," Lauren replied. "They should be." The next attack came digitally. Seagaljustice.org was hit with a major cyber assault. IPS traced to international servers. Thousands of files were scrambled. Names of whistleblowers leaked. Even Lauren's personal phone was cloned. Edited texts appeared online, twisted to make her seem unstable, aggressive. One news headline screamed, "Steven Seagal's niece leading dangerous vigilante group." Lauren didn't blink. She held a press conference the next morning, standing before the fist banner with Ayah at her side. "They can crash our servers. They can smear my name. But they'll never erase what they're afraid of most. A 9-year-old girl who refused to stay silent." Stephen stepped up next. "You want to scare us?" he said. "I've seen fear, I've lived it, I've been it. And nothing I've ever hid in a ring or on a screen was uglier than what you're hiding behind those badges." He paused. "Come at us. Just understand." We hit back. That night, 2 FIST officers received suspicious packages. One a bomb threat, the other laced with tracking malware. Federal agents were called in. The warnings were clear. This wasn't defense anymore. It was open war. Lauren knew they had to act louder, bigger, stronger. She and Stephen planned a national broadcast, one that would reach millions. But just before the date, Lauren received a short, silent video from an unknown account. It was drone footage of Ayah's school. A man stood near the fence, blurred, face, hands in his pockets, watching. The clip ended after 10 seconds. Lauren called Stephen. "They're not going after us anymore," she said. "They're going after her." Within 48 hours, Ayah was moved to a protected location outside Los Angeles. Former Navy SEALs secured the perimeter. Every visitor had to pass through facial recognition. Stephen became a wall, no longer just a father, but Ayah's fortress. That night, Lauren sat on the edge of Ayah's bed. The girl looked up. "Are they going to hurt us?" she asked. Lauren brushed a curl away from her face. "Not if we make sure the whole world is watching." The next morning, on the steps of the federal courthouse in downtown LA, Lauren and Steven Seagal held an emergency press conference. Thousands watched live. Helicopters hovered. Reporters crowded the streets. Stephen stepped forward. "We were warned to stop. We were threatened. They went after our daughter again. So now we're pulling back the curtain and we're not doing it alone." Lauren held up a flash drive. On here are 49 leaked internal memos, 12 sealed personnel files, and over 31,000 verified testimonies, all buried, all protected until now. Gasps, phones lit up, reporters shouted, then the screen rolled out beside them, the drone footage played, the man by the school fence, the image froze, then zoomed. AI enhancement revealed the blurred figure. A retired high-ranking sergeant relocated after a series of misconduct complaints. The crowd erupted. That day, the U.S. Department of Justice announced a full federal investigation into coordinated suppression efforts across 3 states. But the moment wasn't over yet, because then Ayah stepped forward. She held the mic in both hands. "My name is Ayah Seagull. I'm 10 years old. A man broke my arm and tried to make me feel like I didn't belong." She paused. "But I do, and so does every kid who never gets listened to." She lifted another drawing, a girl holding a megaphone. Underneath it read, "Her voice matters." The crowd rose to its feet, and in that moment, they didn't see a little girl. They saw the spark of a new era, one born in silence, one rising through truth, one carried on the voice of a child who dared to speak. Thank you for watching. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We truly want to know who's with us. And please subscribe. We're just a few away from 1,000 subscribers. You can be part of this movement. She was just walking home after an ordinary day, but he decided he could stop her. He had no idea who she was about to call. You'll want to see how this ends. Subscribe now. We're just a few steps away from 1,000 subscribers, and your support really matters. It was a quiet Sunday afternoon in Wilmington, California, and 9-year-old Ayah Seagull was walking home alone from the neighborhood community center. Her sketchpad was tucked under one arm, a red apple in her other hand. The sun was low, casting long golden shadows over the sidewalk. Aylah wasn't laughing, shouting, or causing trouble. She was simply a child making her way home after art class. 2 blocks from her house, a black and white police cruiser slowed down beside her. The driver, Officer Ray Dunning, leaned out the window, his sunglasses slipping slightly down the bridge of his nose. "You lost, sweetheart?" he asked in a tone that was both cold and condescending. Aylah stopped and answered politely, "No, sir. I live right there," pointing down the street. "ID?" he demanded. "I'm 9, she said, confused. "I don't have ID." Dunning opened the door and stepped out of the car, his boots hitting the pavement hard. "Where's your parent?" he asked. "At home," Ayah replied nervously. "I just left art class." "Don't get smart," he snapped, grabbing her wrist suddenly. Ayah froze. "I didn't do anything," she whispered, trying to pull away. "Please let go." The sketch pad fell to the ground. The apple rolled into the gutter. Dunan twisted her small wrist behind her back. "You got a smart mouth for a little brat," he muttered. And then came a loud crack, the unmistakable sound of bone breaking. Ayah screamed in pain and collapsed, to the ground, sobbing. Her arm was bent unnaturally. Dunan stood over her, breathing heavily. "That's what happens when you don't listen," he growled. He reached for his cuffs, as though she were a criminal, but what he didn't know was that Ayah had already triggered an emergency call, just as her father had taught her. A single press and hold shortcut on her phone instantly connected to her Aunt Lauren Seagull, an ex-military officer, a regional boxing champion, and most importantly, the only person Steven Seagal trusted to protect his daughter. Lauren picked up immediately and heard everything. The cop's voice, Ayah's cries, the sickening snap. She didn't speak. She just grabbed her keys, threw on her hoodie, and bolted out the door. "You picked the wrong little girl," she whispered to herself. At Wilmington General Hospital, the emergency room was typically chaotic, but when EMTs rushed in, a little black girl with a visibly broken arm and no explanation, everything stopped. "Who brought her in?" a nurse asked. "Police." One EMT said, "Which precinct?" Didn't say, just left her at the curb and drove off. The staff worked quickly. X-rays, pain medication, stabilization. But the girl wouldn't stop crying. "I didn't do anything," she kept whispering. "I didn't do anything." One nurse noticed Ayah was clutching something tightly in her uninjured hand, her phone. The screen showed an ongoing call to Lauren Seagull, 30 minutes and counting. 30 men away. Lauren was flying down the freeway, laser-focused. Every word from the call played over and over in her head. The scream, the crack, the pleading. She had trained Aylah to memorize the emergency shortcut, never imagining she'd need it so soon. Her phone rang again. Steven Seagal. "I'm on my way," she said as she answered. "How bad is it?" he asked, his voice like distant thunder. "He broke her arm," she said. There was silence, then a low, barely restrained growl. "Where is he?" "Gone. Dumped her and ran." "Don't let him disappear," Steven said. "You find him, you hold him. I'll come through the walls myself if I have to." "I got her," Lauren said. "Stay calm." Steven hung up without another word. When Lauren arrived at the hospital, she didn't stop at the front desk. "I'm her emergency contact," she said sharply. "Ayah Seagull, 9 years old, broken arm. Room number." The nurse hesitated, then pointed. "Room 6. Lauren rushed to the door, and what she saw made her chest tighten. Ayah lay small and trembling in the hospital bed, her arm in a temporary brace, tears streaking her cheeks. The moment their eyes met, Aylah cried harder. Lauren dropped to her knees beside the bed and held her gently. "I'm here, baby girl." "I got you," she whispered. Ayla clung to her, still whispering, "He just grabbed me." I told him my name. I told him who my dad was. Lauren froze. You told him? I told him I was Seagal's daughter. Ayla sobbed. He laughed. Lauren's blood ran cold. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't fear or misunderstanding. It was targeted and deliberate. Lauren took out her phone and opened the recording of the emergency call. She played it aloud. The room filled with Ayah's voice, the cop's angry tone, the screams, the snap. The nurses froze. One whispered, "My God." Another asked, "Do you know who the officer was?" "I'm about to," Lauren said. Outside, she asked for the supervisor and got access to the EMT intake log. There was no name or badge number, but there was a dispatch record connected to patrol unit, 73D. She took a photo of the document and called a contact, Sergeant Maria Sato from LAPD Internal Affairs. "This is Lauren. I need a favor. A cop in Wilmington broke a little girl's arm and ran. I have evidence. You have reach? Send me what you've got," Sato said. "I'll get you a name." 10 minutes later, Lauren had it. Officer Ray Dunning. Badge number, patrol car, prior complaints, a full report. She opened the image of Ayah's arm, the bruises, the fear in her eyes. "This man's about to learn why they call me the other Seagull," Lauren whispered. By the time Ayah had been sedated and was resting, Lauren stood outside her hospital room with arms crossed. Her phone buzzed. "Sergeant Sato again, we got him. Ray Dunning, badge 5372, Wilmington Division. Not even on duty. Took the car without authorization." "Where is he now?" Lauren asked. "He eats every Sunday at a place called Benny's Grill." "Same time. Same booth like clockwork. Don't do anything reckless," Sato warned. But Lauren was already walking. "I'm not going to touch him," she said. "Not yet." At Benny's Grill, Dunning sat comfortably in his favorite booth. He laughed at his phone, barked at the waitress. Lauren parked across the street and watched. 15 minutes later, she walked inside. The bell above the door rang, all eyes turned. She approached his table calmly. "Can I help you?" he grumbled. Lauren didn't speak. She pulled out her phone and tapped play. Ayah's voice filled the diner. "Please stop. That hurts. I didn't do anything." Then the sound crack. The diner went silent. Dunning's smirk.